Hello, everyone. My name is Lucia. About 2 years ago, I serendipitously met Irma Francis through a newly formed Facebook group created with the intention to empower and transform women's lives through the tools of shamanism, through the connection to nature, and through connection with each other. As is typical of Facebook groups, Irma and I exchanged comments and posts, and we very quickly learned that we shared a deeply personal and a lifelong practice in exploring and navigating the realms of metaphysics, consciousness, healing, and spirituality in our everyday lives. These written exchanges were followed with hours and hours of phone conversations in which we discovered that we had each experienced a spiritually significant event early in our lives. And that event changed the trajectory of our lives in a profound way, the implications of which were still unfolding. Irma's story is as fascinating and as it is inspiring. The insights, unique perspectives, and experience she's gathered through her life journey have coalesced into her purpose: to be in service to others via her offerings as holistic life coach and spiritual mentor. I am absolutely delighted to have you meet my friend, my sister from another mother, Irma, and have her share with you in her own words who she is, what her purpose is, and what she offers. Hi, Irma. So good to be with you.
Good to be with you. Thank you for that, Lucy.
You know, Irma, you had an unusual childhood. And so let's go to the beginning. Take us back to when you were 8 years old. Could you please share in detail the spiritual awakening that you describe you had at 8 years?
Yeah, I would love to. Let me just kind of get my reflecting glasses on here. I think before I describe the experience, I just want to say that before this experience, I don't really have a lot of memories before this experience. I mean, I have some, but after this experience, it's like that's when I first woke up, really. And when I reflect back on that now, I think in the moment that this experience happened, around 7 or 8, closer to 8, most kids during that age are moving into an awareness of their persona.
Hmm.
And I think it was in that exact moment that somehow my soul knew that if I were to go on that path,
Mhm.
I would forget my true self, my soul. And that's exactly when this experience happened. At least when I reflect back and through researching and all of that, that's what I gather. So, what was happening before this experience started unfolding? I know I was sitting on the floor in my parents' home, and I remember very clearly kind of having an awareness of above myself, looking at myself. And so a natural question that came was, if I'm up there, who's up there and who's down here?
Right.
And so that was a natural question. And I kind of sat with that because it was kind of confusing to an 8-year-old mind. And so I sat in that awareness, and then I heard and felt a guidance telling me to go outside and sit on the front porch. And so I listened. I looking back, I had no reason not to trust whatever was guiding me. I had I had no hesitation at all, and it didn't even seem odd to me.
Wow.
So I just went and sat on the front porch. And as I did, it was as if everything I was looking at was intense colors, intense energy. Everything had like a pulsating quality to it. And and oddly enough, when I reflect back on it, behind everything I was seeing, there was a light behind it. Right now, when I, look back and through research, was that auras that I was seeing? I don't know. But I know that I could clearly see that every object my eyes would fall upon was somehow an image coming from the light.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's so, I mean, even though it's many, many, many years ago, it's as if it happened yesterday. It's so clear to me. And so as the experience unfolded, and I could feel the energy of everything. And as the experience unfolded, I felt like this energy kind of rising up through me that exited the top of my head. And as that happened, it seemed like the sky opened up. And then as that happened, an energy and light came from the opening in the sky, as if a reciprocal energy exchange was going on. So this opening in the sky sent back a light and an energy that entered the top of my head and traveled through me. And so now there was, between me and this opening in the sky, there was this circular light and energy going on. And so I just allowed it. None of this seemed odd to me. I just allowed it to unfold. And so I sat in that for a while, and I don't know this because I didn't attempt to get up and move, but I have a feeling that if I tried, I couldn't have.
Oh.
That it was, I don't know, this energy exchange that was meant to happen.
And never frightening?
No, not at all. Not one bit of fear. No. Mm-mm. It felt natural.
Wow.
Felt natural. And so in this, I sat with that. And as this was going on, I felt like the light and energy was filling every cell of my being. That every cell of my being was becoming light and energy. And I'm getting chills right now as I'm saying that. I'm not sure why. And in this light and energy exchange or reciprocation, there was downloads of awareness and knowledge. And how that was happening, I don't know. I know it happened and was happening. So I just allowed it, understood the downloads. And it was information about how life works,
Wow.
the human journey. So that, just allowed. And then at one point, the voice that I had heard earlier while inside the house returned and told me that I was being given a choice to remember my soul, my true self, or if I chose to forget, that I would believe everything I was told about who I am and what the meaning of things on earth are. And the voice told me that it didn't matter which choice I made.
Hmm.
but I did have to choose. And so I chose my soul. I chose my true self. Um, I just knew that I had to make that choice. And in that choice, I also knew how I knew these things at 8. I don't know.
Right.
And I
Just
don't
wanted
really
to
know
ask.
that I knew in making that choice that I was making a commitment and that I would not break that commitment. And so as I made my choice, knew I was making a commitment, the intensity of the experience started lessening, and the sky started closing.
Oh,
And then there I was in my choice and in my commitment.
that's just a profound amount of information for an 8-year-old to handle. And to have the expectation that you were able to understand it. Did you have any religious preparation or any belief system that would lead to an experience like this?
Up until that experience, no. No one had taught me a religion. No one had taught me the concept of God. Um, no, none at all. Mm-mm.
So, what was your childhood life growing up after that? Your family, your school, your friendships?
Um, well, from that experience, I was awake. I was awake and ready. And it's like, wow, let's go. Let's have fun. Let's play. Um, and I just thought this is the most curious and beautiful experience, and I just felt full of love and happiness that I got to have. I was in this experience called life. And so that's the way I woke up every day, with that. And eventually, over time, I started realizing, at least in my personal experience, that not everybody was living from that place of isn't this fun, and let's love each other, and let's just live in joy and harmony. And so I got a little confused by that. Yeah, I didn't really understand why that was. And I didn't have that feeling when it came to nature and animals. I didn't have that feeling of like a disconnect. And that was the main feeling that I would have with the people around me, is that there seemed to be a disconnect.
What do you think that experience was that you intrinsically knew was different than what other people were experiencing? As you started to notice the way you navigated your lives and your relationships and your friendships, and that you knew that you were different. How were you different?
I just know what my experience in it was. The main difference that I could feel between the people around me and, say, nature and animals is there wasn't a separation.
Uh,
In my experiencing of animals and nature, there wasn't a separation. But when it came to the people around me, I felt a disconnect and a separation. And so I wondered, I never asked, but I did wonder, like, why aren't you happy?
wow. You meaning the other person.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
people around me. Why do you seem so heavy and weighted down? Of course, looking back at 8, most 8-year-olds are filled life and energy, and people get weighted down because of the responsibilities and burdens and different things that happen in their lives. But at the time, wasn't aware of any of that.
Wow. So you have this profound sense of unity and non-separation in your own personal experiences. And as you've said in some of the things that I've read, that you see this experience that you had at 8 that just changed your life as kind of a soul remembrance. So you were able to remember a piece of your soul. So many people on this planet do not remember their soul or what their soul is. Why do you think they forget, or why do you think that they don't know?
Well, I don't know this for sure. I do think that up until a certain age, children don't forget. And then, as happens to all human beings, we get downloaded with a program. Based on the culture we're in, based on the family we're in, the school system we're in, based on the system, the religion possibly, based on what system we find ourselves in. There's a programming that happens, and that programming takes over versus staying connected to true self. And, we do need to know how to function on Earth, so that programming is part of it. But I think if it happens at a younger age, and it happens intensely, and there aren't people around you that have remained connected themselves, they can't mirror that back to you. Right. And so that's all part of it. And once that programming and conditioning happens, that's when the, getting further and further away from the true self starts to happen. And then, people can live their whole lives based on the programming and conditioning alone, or some people have some kind of awakening that gives them a clue that there's something beyond that.
So would you think that not knowing or not being totally aware of your soul serves a purpose, like it's meant to be, to forget?
Well, that I don't really know. I guess, some of that depends on a person's destiny, maybe, because I think we need all kinds of different people having different experiences to make the world go round. Possibly some people forget because their destiny is to be a great architect, or a great political leader, or a great religious leader, or a great mom, or whatever. I mean, that's possibly part of it. I do know that if a person does forget, and at some point in their life has an awakening that the life I've been living isn't true, isn't authentic to what I sense that I am, that can be extremely that can be a very challenging experience. I don't know if I answered that question clearly. I'm not sure if there's a reason to forget. What do you think?
I actually do think that forgetting is part of our soul purpose, for some people, and not for all, because as you and I have had our experiences that just took us out of the realm of normal thinking and normal, conventional, traditional approaches to living. experiences that we couldn't deny. And so it altered our perceptions and it altered how we engaged with the world around us. But I do think that ultimately the goal is to awaken in a variety of different ways. So it's just curious to me. You said it's a challenge not to awake. And sometimes I think it's a challenge to awake as well after the awakening to navigate life. So, what do you feel spirituality is then? What's your definition or what's your understanding of the term spirituality?
To me, spirituality, or being spiritual or being on this spiritual path, simply means having an awareness of something beyond what our eyes see, beyond the material, and beyond what I would call, the small self. Okay. Something beyond that, an awareness beyond that. To me, it's kind of that simple. Otherwise, and that's to me what creates that feeling of a disconnect, is that because it can create a person to be kind of self-centered, and self with the small s centered without an awareness of anything beyond that. And when you have an awareness beyond that, that connects you to your higher self, and then to the source of all that is, and also connects you to everybody and everything around you. And so there's a lot more compassion and empathy that can happen when you have an awareness beyond the small self, and you are, even if you don't call yourself a spiritual person, if you're living from those values, you are spiritual.
So just to take it a little further and tweak it,
yeah,
could you then give us an idea of your understanding, your definition of spiritual awakening?
Well, spiritual awakening to me would be just that you're living your life based from the small self and from your programming and conditioning. And either something happens kind of spontaneously, without any warning, or it's a gradual kind of waking up to something beyond your own personal small self.
Very well. So this goes into conversations that you and I have had for hours and hours, comparing what our life experiences were through different stages of our lives. And having the knowing of this kind of absolute truth that you did, that there is no separation from the time of 8 and going through school and friendships and relationships and career and family and mothering. Mm-hmm. What were some of the experiences, the paradoxes, the contrasts, maybe the shifts that the major shifts that you recall, and that are important to you as a result of the fact that you had this awareness that was so different than what most people walking around have with them?
Well, I do think for a long time, I lived in kind of a innocence of being connected to that absolute, and that love, peace, harmony, bliss. There was an innocence that went with that, and I was definitely fully connected to what people call the absolute truth. But then at some point in my life, I realized that I had to integrate the relative truth with the absolute truth to create balance and wholeness. And so for me, that was kind of a second big awakening. And, that integration process has been intense and ongoing.
When did it start for you, that awareness that you had to balance?
It took a lot of, how would I say, harsh kind of jolts, like to really get me to believe and understand that not everybody is connected to absolute truth. And yeah, it was through those harsh kind of jolts of, and I got a lot of jolts, throughout my life, but there were some harsh ones where it's like, okay, Irwin, and if you're not going to be knocked off your center every time this happens, you need to get what this is. Mm-hmm. And so I started having a better understanding of not only what was happening to me currently, but what had happened at 8 and many, many different experiences, transcendent experiences along the way, because what happened for me and continues to happen for me.
Right.
If that veil of forgetfulness kind of starts to come down, grace will take me into some kind of transcendent experience, and the veil never comes down. And so, in a way, even though it's been difficult in its own way, because of those transcendent experiences, I'm forced to stay awake in a world where that can be really, really hard to do, because there's, so much suffering and chaos and all the things that go on in our world. To be awake to that and stay awake to that is not necessarily easy, but what creates the balance and makes it doable are those transcendent experiences, and kind of a recharging and a refreshing. And I don't know if that was clear, but
so I'm going to ask you a question that you may choose or not choose to answer. Can you give us a specific experience you had? Give us the normal life experience and give us the Irma perception of it, and how you had to learn normal life limitations to balance your.
Well, the best way that I've learned how to navigate through life is staying connected to the energy that flows through everything.
Okay.
Even people, whether they're aware of that or not. And in staying connected to that, there's a flow within that. And within that flow is peace, love, and harmony. And so I'm able to, wherever I go, create an environment or participate in bringing that flow more into the relationships, the environment, or whatever I'm in. And that is my saving grace, because if I lost contact with that flow and that energy and that connection, I would be totally lost. Wow. I would be then trying to navigate my way through life through my small self, and it would be like going blind.
Do you utilize any special practices to stay centered and connected?
Meditation, sometimes yoga. I'm not real disciplined in that, but meditation and a connection to nature. And also an extreme awareness of remaining open and in a place of allowing. Yeah, those are the main ingredients. And if I feel in these transcendent experiences, if there's so much intense energy that comes in and so much opening that happens, I have to make sure that I find ways to ground myself to keep a balance.
So knowing that you've lived a life, knowing what it's like not to feel separate, did any past life experiences ever bleed through? Did you ever encounter and reflect upon past lives experiences?
Well, like everything else in my life that has happened, I did have past life remembering, and it came the way all other experiences have come for me. I didn't seek it out, it just happened. And usually these experiences of remembering a past life would happen when I was just kind of sitting peacefully in a place of openness. And I'll just give one example. I was watching a music awards show, and Kenny G was playing. I think he plays a sax. I'm not sure. Um, and as he was playing and hit this certain note, I became one with that musical note, and that through that oneness with this musical note opened up a portal to a past life experience.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that particular experience, I was a very muscular man running through like a dark alley or dark passageway. I was barefoot. I was sweating. I could feel my heart beating. And I was very afraid, very afraid. And I was being chased because I was being falsely accused of murdering somebody.
Oh,
And I felt everything. I could feel my bare feet in the puddles, hitting the ground. I could feel my heart beating. I was this man. And as the experience ended, and later in my life, not only with this experience, but many others that I had, I could connect something that was going on in my current life to what this past life showed me. So, in that particular example, being falsely accused, that was something that kind of really bothered me in my present day life. If I was falsely accused, I would have like this overreaction to that.
wow.
Yeah, and I think this past life kind of was there to show me that.
So were you able to heal that ultimately?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I think if a person is having past life remembering, I think that's why. It's to show us something that's happening in our current day that is unhealed or.
That's so $64,000 question. Why do you think it's so hard for people to wake up?
Well, it kind of depends. If a person wakes up, much later in life, then there is that, or starts waking up, then there's that entire history of living a life and making choices and decisions that weren't in alignment with the true self. So I think there could be grief that comes with that. If a person has a spontaneous awakening, or specifically, if somebody is trying to wake another person up, I would never advise that.
You and I've talked about that a lot in our conversation. So
Yeah.
can you just expand a little bit more on why you think it's unwise to demand someone wake up?
Yeah, well, there's a saying, and I'm not sure who said it, but that denial is the shock absorber for the soul.
Oh,
Um, I think because our world is really challenging to live in, a lot of people's way of finding their way to keep a balance and navigate their way through this, what can be a really challenging experience is some kind of denial. And, if you break that denial in a person, they they may not be strong enough to handle that.
Right.
And I think that can happen in a spontaneous awakening too, where a person has a spontaneous awakening and all of a sudden they're seeing the bigger picture of things. I personally feel that I don't like the word should, it would be wonderful if we had more availability and a more openness to helping people through that, because I personally feel that people do need help through that. Mm-hmm. That's not an easy thing, and it can get, mislabeled as mental illness, or mislabeled as an emotional breakdown, or mislabeled somehow. And really, it's, oh my God, this is not what I thought it was. I was seeing this way, and now I'm seeing the whole picture. That's a lot to deal with.
Plus, when other people aren't seeing the whole picture and you're seeing the picture, and there isn't anyone to share your experience with the language that you need to use to share that experience, makes it even more difficult.
Exactly. And that's a real important point, because part of the challenge of being on a spiritual path is a lot of times the people around you have no idea what you're talking about. And so it can be an extremely lonely experience. And if you're graced to meet beautiful people, like, we met each other, and it's like, oh, someone understands me. It's like having this whole other language, or that it is like another language. It's like an awareness that life isn't flat. It's multidimensional, and it's huge, and infinite, and it goes on and on and on, and expands and expands and expands, and there's such richness in that. And if you can't share that with other people, yeah.
As we know. So, Irma, can you sum up your core message for us in any way?
My core message?
At least at this time, what is your core message?
Well, besides the importance of finding ways to see the bigger picture of things, because it does create a lightness and an open-heartedness, within people, and it would make our world a better place. My core message is that there's part of me that feels this way, and part of me that has another perspective. But the importance of waking up to spiritual understandings is that you can see that life has so much more meaning to it than to collect material things. And, it is for soul progression. And to me, to think of a person reaching the end of their life, and maybe at the end then realizing, oh my God, or not realizing it at all. Because I do feel that life is about a soul progression and a waking up to that. So that would be my core message, and what I love to support people in, if they're wanting to go on that journey. The other part would be that I practice a staying present and staying in the space of allowing. So there's nothing I do in my life that comes from a forced place. So I've never really, marketed myself, or marketed my services, or put myself out there in a way It's a very natural unfolding and allowing, um, that just resonates with me. It's that's really important to me because sometimes I think, um, if someone gets on a spiritual path and they start looking outside of themselves to different teachers and different books, and they're taking in all of this stuff from other people, in a way it possibly could be taking them further and further away from what their natural true awakening would be.
So important, especially now during really challenging and very confusing and controversial times, to have your own self be advanced and guiding your life, as you do with the knowledge that you have about all is one. So we've talked about this too, and I love your answer. I already know what it is. Do you really consider yourself to be a teacher of spiritual understandings?
No. No, I don't. I can't. It's hard for me to even say I consider myself, because I don't. I mean, I'm open. I'm open, and I don't feel that I am a teacher any more of spiritual understandings any more than you are, or my next door neighbor, or my grandchild, or my children. I think we're all teachers and students. If we are open to that, that's always happening. And so, it's a choice that I make to support other people in something that I feel was life changing for me and could be beneficial and life changing for other people if they are in a place where they want to do that.
Well, I also know that you're in the process of completing a book, and you have your excerpt on your website. Could you tell us a little bit more about your book? Give us a kind of a look into it.
Yeah, I mean, my main purpose for writing that, first of all, it came as, that voice came and, instructed me to follow and listen, and it gave me the title, and it, guided me to find, the photo that's on the cover of the book, which kind of everything kind of aligned. And, I was instructed to write this book, Front Porch View, and it is based, of course, on that experience that I had at 8 years old, on the front porch. And it really is for me to, it's been helpful for me to connect all the dots and to, really see things clearer. And, if it helps other people in the process as they read it, that's wonderful. But the main reason was I was instructed to do it. I listened and followed. And it is a journey from that first 8-year-old experience up to current day and everything that happened in between.
That's wonderful. So, I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and I've gone on your website and kind of scoped things out. And I was really curious about the quotes you chose to put on your website. The one that really calls to me is this particular one. I'm going to read it. It's a quote from Five States of the Soul by Harry Moody and David Carroll. And this is the quote: "Pain is not here to torment us. Feelings of depression and emptiness are symptoms something far more fundamental. They stem from a kind of primal pain of separation that we all feel, a separation from something deep within our hearts and souls. We're all in a state of mourning for something we have lost, and all of us are desperate to get it back again."
Mhm.
Why did you choose that? I've got goosebumps as I read it.
Because I think, for me personally, I think that's holds very, very true. And I do feel like a lot of times when people are in a place of anxiety and depression and grief, that the best salve, the best healing for that would be a connection to the wholeness that exists, a connection to what's eternal in all of us. Because when that connection happens and you stay connected to that, it pretty much erases all fear.
Mhm.
Because when you understand that you're eternal and always have been and always will be, you can then make a shift within yourself to be in the place of acceptance and love and harmony and grace and all of those beautiful things, because we aren't trying to um, get something from someone else or from life itself. We are in that place of wholeness. And I really personally feel that's the answer to everything.
Well, Irma, I'm going to do a little Oprah here. What do you know for sure?
What do I know for sure? I know for sure that we're all connected in a place of love, and that everything is happening exactly as it should be. And if we can get out of this false belief of thinking that we have control over things outside of ourselves, and we just allow ourselves to be in that wholeness, be in that presence, be in that place of allowing and openness, it changes the energy around us, which then changes the people around us, and that, just keeps waving out and becoming larger and larger. It touches everything.
Mhm.
And the more of us that can do that, through that we can change the world. I mean, I don't know how else things on this earth can change other than through that I just mentioned. That is our saving grace. And this I know for sure.
So beautiful. Thank you, Irma. There is a little affirmation you did it after one of your YouTubes that has always stuck with me, and I'd like to end with that here. In the meantime, may you live in the comfort and the light and the love of grace. Be well. Thank you.